Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into an absolutely epic story about how global industries and nations actually teamed up to build an invisible, incredibly powerful shield for our seas. Just picture a majestic, bright, pristine ocean. Keeping it that way and preventing it from becoming this dark, polluted wasteland took a monumental global effort that completely reshaped the maritime world as we know it. Let's get right into it.
10 million gallons. Just let that sink in for a second. That staggering number represents the crude oil spilled from the Exxon Valdez back in 1989. It was an absolute catastrophe. It left a dark stain across vast stretches of coastline, and the financial damages were just so immense that they literally took over a decade to pay out. You can really think of the 1967 Torrey Canyon and the 1989 Exxon Valdez spills as these massive global wake-up calls. These highly visible cinematic disasters exposed a pretty terrifying reality. No single entity, no matter how ridiculously wealthy, could financially cope with a major oil disaster at sea on their own. The stakes were just way too high.
Section 1. The First Defenders, the CLC, and the Fund.
So, to answer this massive global threat, the world assembled an international alliance under the International Maritime Organization. But the million-dollar, or well, billion-dollar question they faced was this. If one huge spill can completely bankrupt a ship owner, how do we guarantee the oceans actually get cleaned up? How do we stop a nightmare scenario where the money simply runs out and the environment is just left to suffer?
The fix they came up with was actually brilliant. It's a two-part financial defense system. On one side, you have the 1969 Civil Liability Convention, or CLC, which places strict liability squarely on the shipowner. And on the other side, the 1971 Fund Convention. Think of this as a giant backup vault, but it's funded by the massive crude oil importers, not the ships themselves.
Let's look a little closer at the CLC. It forces owners of laden tankers carrying persistent oils, things like heavy crude, to hold compulsory insurance. And they are held strictly liable for damages. That means fault doesn't even have to be proven. Under the 1992 amendments, this liability goes all the way up to 59.7 million special drawing rights, which is basically an international reserve currency, scaling with the ship's tonnage. It creates this incredibly powerful, immediate financial net to start the cleanup instantly.
But wait, what if the owner is legally exempt? Say, because of an act of war or an unavoidable natural disaster? Or what if the cleanup bill just completely blows past those CLC limits? Well, that's exactly where the Fund Convention steps in with supplementary compensation. This backup fund can pay out up to 5,667,000 SDRs, making absolutely sure the affected waters are fully restored and the cleanup never stops just because the first line of defense ran out of cash.
Section 2. The Architectural Mastermind, MARPOL 73/78. With financial compensation finally secured, this global alliance shifted its focus from just reacting to disasters to preventing them from ever happening. MARPOL acted as a revolutionary blueprint. We are talking about next-level engineering here, like crude oil washing and segregated ballast tanks for new tankers over 20,000 deadweight tons. These protectively located tanks physically insulate the cargo from collisions and stop the discharge of dirty ballast water. It literally redesigned how ships operate on the water to keep our oceans vibrant and pristine. It also deployed strict, totally uncompromising operational protocols. Discharging oil into the sea is just entirely prohibited unless very specific conditions are met. The ship has to be over 50 nautical miles from land, definitely not in a designated special area like the Antarctic, and, get this, they have to use high-tech filters that automatically sound an alarm and stop the discharge if the oil content exceeds just 15 parts per million. Talk about precision. And the best part? MARPOL didn't stop at just oil. It rolled out a comprehensive suite of regulatory annexes protecting our bright blue oceans from noxious liquids, harmful packaged substances, sewage, and garbage. Later, in 1997, they even added an annex to combat air pollution. It effectively became a total environmental shield. Section 3. The Uncompromising Wildcard, the U.S. OPA of 1990. So, while international rules were growing stronger, the United States decided to introduce its own sweeping, uncompromising legislation right after the Exxon Valdez. The Oil Pollution Act of 1990, or OPI 90, statutorily includes third-party damages and the loss of natural resources. It requires immense financial responsibility, up to $1,200 per gross registered ton, or $10 million for large tankers. And crucially, it allows for direct lawsuits against P&I clubs, the maritime insurance providers themselves. This was an incredibly bold move that dramatically raised the stakes for anyone trading in U.S. waters. Naturally, this strict U.S. legislation forced an immediate global market evolution. It sparked a dramatic shift to ordering double-hull ships, and suddenly insurance surcharges were baked directly into shipping world-scale rates. On top of that, charterers began rigorously scrutinizing a shipowner's entire operational history before doing business. Oil majors became highly selective, putting safety and a solid track record above everything else.
Section 4. Retiring the placeholders as the world matures.
Now, before these robust legal frameworks were fully embraced globally, the industry couldn't just sit in the dark and wait for governments to act. They needed to bridge the gap. Back in 1969, the tanker and oil industries voluntarily created Tovolop and Crystal. These agreements, funded directly by the industry itself, provided interim compensation up to $70 million. And, remarkably, they even covered what's known as pure threat situations, meaning situations where preventative measures were taken to protect the environment even if no oil actually ever spilled.
These voluntary agreements served their purpose beautifully. But as nations around the world successfully ratified the strict international legal systems of the CLC and the Fund Convention, the world matured. Having built a much stronger permanent architecture, the industry officially retired these voluntary placeholders on February 20, 1997.
Section 5. A Brighter Horizon and the Alliance Triumphs.
So, what is the ultimate payoff of this epic, decades-long global teamwork between the CLC, the Fund, MARPOL, and Open90? Well, the proof is right in the data. Thanks to the stringent engineering rules of MARPOL and the strict financial liabilities of the CLC, Fund, and Open90, the number of oil spills since 1980 has plummeted by more than 70%. It's an absolutely breathtaking achievement in marine conservation, literally turning a gloomy trajectory into a bright, undeniable success story. This wasn't just a minor win. This was a massive global victory. Today, nations representing over 80% of the world's shipping tonnage have ratified MARPOL. It proves that humanity actually can unite. We can engineer brilliant solutions and build an invisible, highly effective armor around our marine ecosystems to keep our oceans vibrant and full of life for generations. Which leaves us with this final thought for today's explainer. As you look out at the ocean, knowing there is this incredible, massive global machinery working silently in the background to keep it clean, what will be the next great challenge we must unite to conquer to protect the waters we all share? The sea is vast, and our responsibility to it continues.